you know, there was no phones and stuff in there, but I got to tour the MotoGP shop and to see what goes into those bikes. I mean, which is crazy. Those bikes are 300 horsepower and only 348 pounds. If you know, you know, but there's a lot of trails around these parts. We found ways to get from Temecula to Ocotillo. When I look on Apple Maps, if I can zoom all the way in, I can't zoom in anymore, and I could see some transition on one side and the other on the screen.
You have a ratio down?
I have a ratio that I know that if I can see, this partner, like it's kind of officially like it's happening, and they told me it was Apple. And it honestly would probably be the absolute perfect time for me to say this. Ken Roczen, dude.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Swap Moto Live and welcome to the SML Show presented by Yamaha Motors. I'm here with my buddy Tyler Bereman. First off, dude, thank you for making time for me. I feel like last time I saw you was a couple months ago, and since then you've been to Italy, X Games twice. A couple days ago you were jumping over Formula One cars.
Yeah.
So, yeah, dude, you've been slammed, it sounds like.
Yeah, I've been full gas. I mean, it was kind of full gas from the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
I had Day in the Dirt, Florida, and some other film projects. I've been kind of full gas and loving every second of it, though. I feel like when my back's against the wall and I'm on to the next thing, or I have a carrot dangling in front of me of the next event or the next, thing that I'm doing, that's when I operate my best. So it's been full gas, but yeah, it was cool right before X Games Sacramento. It was really cool that we had the opportunity to have two X Games this summer, and unfortunately, they didn't have quarter pipe. Usually I compete in quarter pipe and whip, and at least having a whip contest at both was pretty cool.
Is it weird only going there for like one contest?
It is.
Seems like a lot for one thing.
Yeah. And, when you really break it down, like quarter was a lot gnarlier, so we actually got paid better for that. So the one bigger paying event.
Yeah.
Not being there is, whatever. I don't do it for the money. I do it because I love it. And, whips is kind of my thing. That's what I've always done. Even when I raced, I would basically make a main event, and I just do whips on the finish line every lap. So, but yeah, it was really cool. I had the opportunity of two X Games, but before that, you mentioned Italy, and got to go to Italy for about almost 2 weeks, just shy of 2 weeks. It was about 2 weeks with the travel days. But spent 10 days in Italy and had a couple of Red Bull events there. One of them was kind of like a soapbox style race. It was on Italy's 4th of July, so Italy Day. Was super cool, fun. I rode a Husky 300 at the time. And did wheelies and nose wheelies and jumped over some influencers and content creators laying on the ground, and got to just do burnouts and have fun. That was cool. And then the second event was they call it Ride and Smoke. So it's more or less a Day in the Dirt style event. It's all two strokes. And the cool thing about that is they have basically they have a contest and three basically different things. So it's like Super Pole, fastest lap, best whip comp, and a whole shot challenge.
Oh,
so the overall winner of the three gets a paid trip to Day in the Dirt Glen Helen here.
Oh,
they
no
call
way.
it the American Dream.
That's pretty
So
rad.
it was cool. They got me. I went and I got to ride a Husky 300 there at this super cool track in Italy, and it was super fun. Then I got to judge the contest of the whip contest, and then obviously the other two aren't judged. It's just you make it to the line first, or you have the fastest lap. Got to surprise the winner with the American Dream trip, which was super cool to see. The look on those guys' faces was
I bet, dude. Yeah.
Was epic, knowing that they get to come to Glen Helen and experience Glen Helen for what it is, and not only that, a Day in the Dirt, right?
Yeah,
that
probably the best week of the year.
Yeah, for sure. So, and then in the midst of that, got to do a couple days off, and then it was really cool. Got to go experience Mugello. MotoGP was absolutely insane. Got to hang at the Red Bull Energy Station, and it was kind of the start of this thing that Ducati hosted me, and was super cool to go see the inside of, you know, the garages, and you know, Red Bull had their energy station, hang out there, watch the races, and Mugello is definitely probably the bucket list race. It's that everyone says it's one of the best ones, and the most beautiful, you know, place in Italy. So I got to do that, and that was amazing. Got to go filmed with Carson Brown at Trentino, the MXGP track that they race. That's like the
what's that bike?
What?
The bike that he was riding on.
I mean, he rode so many bikes,
really?
But he had there was a Beta 350 two-stroke or something.
That's the one I remember.
And then there was a couple guys there that had some like really badass, like old school two-strokes, like rebuilt. One was a KX. There was a CR500 there, and then there was a KX 250, and then there was also a Honda 250 of some sort. He rode all of it, like he always does. But being able to ride that track, man, it was basically like a Windows 98 screensaver, Moto screensaver, really, of what it looked like. So I got to do like a month worth of shit in 2 weeks, and that was insane.
How was because obviously I've seen clips of you whipping the Husky 300 around and whatnot. How was riding a two-stroke? I can't remember ever really seeing too much of you on a two-stroke.
I mean, I rode a YZ125 as soon as I got off Super Minis for about 3 months, and that was right when 250Fs you know came out. Well, they were out for a while, but that was right when, you know, everyone switched to them, and I rode a 125 for about 3 months, and then 3 months later, I was on a 250, and a month after that, I was on a 452. So just 4 strokes. That's been my life, I guess. But I love going back to a two-stroke. There's nothing like the sound of a two-stroke on, you know, any bike. And 125 is probably my favorite, but 250 too. It's a 300, any of it. It all sounds sick.
Yeah, Don and I have been on a two-stroke bug lately.
Nice.
Obsessed. We feel a lot faster. So it's cool.
I love it.
Dude, so like looking at your calendar, how much has it changed since you first started doing this type of career with Red Bull? Like, have you gotten busier? Has it kind of stagnated in a way?
I mean, it comes and goes, right?
Okay.
It comes in waves, and I've learned that about myself. I've done, you know, I work with like a mental coach and a life coach, and I operate best when I have the carrot in front of me and doing things. So it's really cool though that I'm not told when to ride, where to ride. I get to kind of do what I want and create my own schedule, and you know, moto's freestyle or racing, right? There was no in between, and I think there's this new niche that's now becoming a thing. Like free riding's coming back. Like I grew up on crusties and all these things, terra firma, steel roots. That was like molded me as a kid, and as, you know, wanting to ride my motorcycle. And it's cool to kind of see it coming back. Like I don't necessarily have to go race anymore, but I also don't have to go do backflips and be a quote-unquote freestyler. Like I fall in between and call it free riding, and I get to go do what I want. But to your point, you know, the Red Bull has kept me very busy. I've been able to do a lot of really cool passion projects, and Red Bull does a lot of cool things where they get a lot of athletes together, and they call them ideation sessions. So they basically teach us how to think of an idea, pitch the idea, and then sell the idea. So with that, I've been able to make some of my wildest dreams come true. And then, you know, there is a lot of, the more that you do, then the more you get asked of like, you know, there's Red Bulls in different regions all over the world, and you know, get asked on you know, appearances basically at some of these events. And at that point, you kind of pick and choose your battles of what you want to do. And I think, you know, working with my coaches, I really try to balance like the work and the rest side. So like, you know, we just talked about my crazy schedule. I've been pinned most of the year, but the times that I've had like a week or 2 weeks at home, I like make it a point to really rest, recover, and recharge, you know? So I wouldn't have it any other way. I operate best when the wheel's turning. So stoked to be able to, you know, 8-year-old me look at it and be like, wow, this is cool. Because I mean, I graduated preschool when I was 4. It was right after I got my first bike, and you know, my dad and my grandpa raced and rode, and it's been in my blood forever. But I graduated preschool, slid down the slide, and said, they asked what I wanted to be when I grew up, I said I wanted to be a professional motorcycle rider, whether that was racing, whether it was whatever it was. Like, and here I am. I turned 35 in a few weeks, and I'm still doing the damn thing. It's pretty crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
All right. You recently made a pretty big announcement.
Yeah.
Our guy Scrub Daddy, I think, blew you out a little bit early, but dude, it's funny because you make the announcement. I think the week before we got to test the factory Desmo450. And as soon as the pictures of you drop, my phone's going crazy with DMs. Like, oh, friends texting me, do you have the Ducati? I want to ride it. I want to try it out. And like the hype is real. So congrats. How is the new deal?
Dude, it's amazing. I guess, touching back on going to Italy and them hosting me at MotoGP, like I did get to go see, like do a tour of the headquarters in Italy. And the culture of Ducati and just two wheels, right? It's like, it reminds me of like the Ferrari of two wheels. And seeing the culture, obviously more street culture in Europe was crazy. And to just see the headquarters, see how it's ran, see all the bikes and all the production and everything, it was really cool. And to be honest, like for as big as it is, it's like pretty small, tight-knit community there. And obviously them making the step into off-road has been really cool.
Yeah. And
as soon as I saw him come out, it was like, I told myself, like, man, like I've always wanted to see a red fender and a 653 on a red plate. And when I saw him come out, I'm like, man, that's pretty cool. Like Ducati is just such a cultural, iconic brand in two wheels. And then they introduced the off-road bike, and I was like, man, like that's, it's happening. But I wanted to, like, more or less just like anyone else, I wanted to kind of see it in action, right? So then they made the team, Supercross. Unfortunately, Justin got hurt at the first round, but it was like, man, the bikes look really good. First and foremost, aesthetically look insane. But then they also look like they do work pretty well. So, fast forward, like, it was kind of in talks with them and Jason down there in Ducati North America. And him and Dave Casella, like, been, chatting with them for a bit and behind closed doors, got a bike and got to ride it. And I was really blown away. I think first and foremost, looking down and seeing the red fender was like, yeah, there it is. And not only that, it being a Ducati, right? Not like a Honda. Like, I love Honda, I've always have, but like haven't really ridden one. So now the Ducati thing, it was just, it was really cool. I really liked the bike and how it handled, and there's obviously things that I would want to do to it to make it more to my liking, and everything's perspective and what I like someone else might not like what I like. So I just did a few things to make it a little more comfortable, and worked with the suspension and got a few days on it. And Scrub Daddy saw me at Cahuilla. That's the thing about
public tracks.
You can't really hide. But I no numbers, and I don't even know if I had my name and number on the back of my jersey, but I obviously only have a Red Bull helmet, and that's kind of a dead giveaway. So anyways, I got a couple days on the bike, felt really good with it, and I was like, man, I think I'm really gonna like this. The way that the thing revs with that Desmo valve, the way it revs on top, the way it pulls, I had this like intriguing feeling to like wanting to get on it and get on a ramp and see how it felt. And I went to Italy and came home, and when I came home, I only had about a week and a half until X Games, and I was like, man, I really want to, but that's not enough time. I've had 8 years on my KTM, and mind you, like, KTM's been great to me over the years, and I think it was just time for a change for me. I had my KTM and the bike that I built from Island Hopper and competed on at Sacramento the first X Games, but literally the day I left from X Games, I came home, grabbed jump suspension from Factory Connection, and went to work. I basically did 3 months worth of shit in 2.5 weeks getting ready for New Orleans, and I was like, man, I put the suspension on. I have right down the street, Elsinore, I had my ramp, and it's a public track, but the ramp's kind of tucked away in the back, and like I guess not a lot of people saw me. I was able to ride that thing for about 2 weeks and did a bunch of, testing and working on balance and gearing and worked with Jamie and got a twisted ECU vortex on it. And I felt really comfortable first day right off the bat. And it just kind of everything fell into place really well. And I'm absolutely in love with the bike. Like every time I ride it, it feels better and better and better. And when I look on paper to say a KTM from a Ducati, that's what, switching from KTM going to Ducati, like on paper, it's a little bit heavier, but the way that Desmo valve, the thing revs, it feels way lighter to me in the air, and it feels more flickable. Yeah. Maybe that's less moving parts in the head, whatever it is, but the power on that thing was crazy sick, and it revs to the moon, which is good for whipping, off of a next gen ramp. And I think, a really cool thing is like they have the team, and those guys are searching for millimeters all the time for lap times and all that stuff. It's really cool to be an ambassador now and be able to give feedback back to Ducati North America, but also Ducati Italy, and for my side of things and jumping and I guess free riding. And it's not so much freestyle, but it's in the realm of that. Like we're hitting a ramp that doesn't change and bigger jumps. So being able to have give input and have that be taken well, and kind of giving them feedback on what I like for this thing, and it's really cool that Corey Creed is on one as well. So they have two riders at X Games, and then they now have a Baja team, and they have some off-road guys, and then obviously the team, the 250s dropping soon. The dual sport just dropped. It's happening, and I think Ducati's here to stay, and it's such a cultural, iconic brand that it's just, I'm stoked to see another manufacturer jump in, and I'm 10 times as stoked to be able to be an ambassador for the company that's still kind of fresh and new, and help build together. My ultimate goal is to help sell dirt bikes, right? I think I can, relate to the average Joe that goes out and wants to go ride and have fun and rip with his buddies. So, that's all I'm trying to do is sell bikes and push this thing, and I hope everyone loves it as much as I do.
Yeah, no, it's rad, dude. It looks good. All right, we're gonna take our first commercial break. We'll be back with more with Bereman.
I'm Eli Tomac, and I choose OGL.
I'm Cooper Webb.
I'm Malcolm Stewart.
RJ Hampshire.
I'm Josh Moda, and I choose Zojo.
I'm Aaron Plessinger.
What's up, guys? I'm Hunter Lawrence.
My name's Jet Lawrence. I'm Hayden Deegan, and I choose OGO.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the SML Show. Here with Tyler Bereman. All right, Ducati, dude. It's like a perfect fit, but as you're kind of alluding to, like, it's cool to see such a massive brand not only just come into our sport, but be so invested right away. Like, they really didn't waste much time in getting the team with Troy. The off-road team was pretty quick too. Your whole other avenue. I know some guys that work on the Supercross team a little bit. They were testing like Supercross, I think, around this time last year. Like, they were going right for it. They've made huge strides since A1 with the bike, you know. How has it been for you? Because that's a whole other genre. Like, I assume you mentioned that the time of testing you had to do, but I assume that's a lot of work. It's a new new everything.
Yeah, it is. You know, I will say, like, all the 450s these days are so good that, like, if people ask me this all the time, like, what's the best bike to get? And I personally say that if you go into a dealership and they have them all, sit on all of them, whichever one feels the most comfortable sitting on, you're probably going to like that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, I think this one was, you know, obviously compared to my KTM, was a steel chassis, this one having an aluminum frame. There's a lot of things that are just different, but right away, the first thing I noticed was the powertrain. I really, really, really like the power on this thing. I'm used to a lot of torque off the bottom, you know, being most comfortable racing Supercross when I did, and then, you know, obviously jumping now, like, I really like all the balls off the bottom. So, you know, I did a little work on that, but the way the thing revved, it was insane. So it was a lot of work though, coming from, you know, a steel chassis going to an aluminum frame.
Yeah.
The cool thing about the Ducati is they call it a weldless frame. So if you look at like the stem and stuff, there's not welds all the way down. It's a cast cut frame of the whole upper piece of the frame. So the whole frame, there's probably, you know, maybe 6 welds compared to like 12 on a normal aluminum frame. So it's almost feels a bit of like that in between of the two, right?
Yeah.
Of like one's more stiff and one flexes more. It's kind of like a little bit in between. I think the one thing that I had to work on for me was like the balance of the bike. It does sit a little higher than the KTM, and you know, once I figured that out, like I was just off to the races. I didn't want to like do too much stuff to be able to like overcomplicate it for myself. I needed to like find a setup fairly quickly and get comfortable on it. The cool thing is, like, you know, I rode it twice on the track and then went straight to the next gen ramp. And
really?
Yeah, that was literally the only time that I had. So going into, I had 2 days on the bike, you know, outdoors, and then went straight to the ramp, had a few days on the ramp, and then I was like, Jason Baker with Dream Tracks came and rebuilt Twitch's backyard, and it was cool because he has his ramps, but he also has a bunch of other like more or less free ride jumps. It's like kind of like a mini imagination. It's like a skate park for dirt bikes, and you know, I got some more time on the ramp there, and then I started to like actually, you know, hit all the other free ride stuff, and then I could like really start breaking the bike down in my head of like how the thing flicks. Like every whip feels a little bit different. But the one thing that I took from being able to do that is on paper the bike's a little heavier, but just the way that the thing flicks off the ramps, off the lips was, it was insane. So I'm really just so stoked to be a part of that, and just such an iconic brand, and that's all I want to do is just help sell motorcycles.
Yeah, isn't it crazy how, like, obviously we do some testing and we're not riding capabilities are nowhere near you, but like you look at the bikes on the scale and then what they feel like with engine inertia and stuff, it's totally different. Different. It'd be so interesting to just ride all the bikes and then guess what's the heaviest, you know?
And that's something I've never done. I've never like had all manufacturers like sitting in a row and been able to like ride each one just out of the crate and just see how they are. But, you know, going from a Kawasaki, like I grew up on a Yamaha, raced amateurs on a Yamaha, then went to Kawi, then went to KTM, then now Ducati. So I haven't ridden them all, but they all have their own characteristics, and just bikes are just getting better and better and better these days. So, but the Ducati, man, I'm so stoked on it, and the you know, some of that technology that can then potentially come from MotoGP in the MotoGP world. Like when I was in Italy and got to tour the headquarters, I you know, there was no phones and stuff in there, but I got to tour the MotoGP shop and to see what goes into those bikes. I was just like hands behind my back with my jaw on the floor the whole time we were taking the tour, and you know, you think about that and how much technology is in those, but I mean, which is crazy, those bikes are 300 horsepower and only 348 pounds. Dude, that's almost insane. A 1-to-1 ratio of weight and horsepower. And
that's crazy.
that's just to see some of that Desmo valve now on the dirt bike. That's like, there's so much stuff that can potentially be coming. But yeah, it's just really, really cool opportunity for me, but just really cool to see such an iconic brand come into the space. And, that's what we need more of bikes and manufacturers and ultimately just build this sport, right? That it's pretty cool. And now Ducati coming out with the 250 that's dropping next month, and then just dropping the dual sport. I got to go to Mammoth and do the dual sport commercial, and that thing was insanely fun. I spend most of my time in the winter every time it rains on my dual sport. So
500 plus hours.
Yeah. No, I don't. I think I have 190 hours, and I have about 5,300 miles. So if you break that down, that's like basically over 40 miles a ride. So, if you know, but there's a lot of trails around these parts.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And I actually, one of my last rides that I did after it rained last year, I went from Derek Jake's house, which is like basically right across the freeway in Canyon Hills. We rode all the way to the test track, the Honda test track, saw Hunter Lawrence testing, saw Osho at the track, saw Dazzy, saw Lars, saw the whole squad, left there, went under the freeway, went up main divide of Indian Truck Trail, went up Indian Truck Trail all the way across main divide, and then back down. So that was like
That's nuts.
Yeah. And that maybe I said too much of like giving some of that stuff away, but it's dirt roads, at the top, and we, if there's a will, there's a way, and we try to be as respectful as we can and not crossing through private properties. But we spend a lot of time on Google Earth and Google Maps, and the more you look, the more you find.
Yeah, find a way. I know. I did a ride a long time ago with Jeremy from his house, and I'm like, dude, I could. Like 20 more minutes and I can get to Kauai.
Yeah,
like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean we found ways to get from Temecula to Ocotillo.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, so rad, so rad. So on that note, obviously, I'm sure you have a lot planned with Ducati. Could we get a flat track build? That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be insane, huh? Yeah. I actually my dad raced a flat track race at Paris a few months ago, and I saw one of the guys in the singles class, was an older guy. There wasn't like ton of pros. It was just like a local race, but the guy had a built Ducati flat track bike, Desmo450, and I was like, damn, that looks good. So yes, I would love to do that. I have a lot on my mind that I would like to build. Obviously, first thing's probably a dual sport because rain season's right around the corner. And then, a flat track bike would be insane. Maybe I've never done a track day on a street bike. And I actually, funny thing, my neighbor growing up was Jake Zemke, who raced for American Honda for a long time. Yeah. I used to go to Laguna Seca every year for American Superbike. I was really good friends with his stepson. I went every year, and he got a fill-in ride for MotoGP. So I grew up around this stuff for a long time. My dad raced Nicky Hayden and Tommy Hayden and Roger in flat track, but then also have followed MotoGP for a long time. And Ducati has just been at the forefront of that, and I've been around that stuff a long time. So I guess you look at a lot of flat trackers are really good at road racing. So one of these days we'll probably get on that. And the cool thing is with Ducati, they see my vision and wanting to tell stories and create content. And, I think there'll be a lot of cool partnerships with that, of like my own film content through my own YouTube channel. And it's crazy this day and age that like YouTube and like everyone has a YouTube channel, but like I'm not trying to like do it for the money of it. Like I want to do it as, do passion projects that I can have control over and not have a brand that I ride for or a brand that's sponsoring it, like basically control the narrative of it. So that's what I was able to do. I just released a YouTube video on my YouTube called Grounding, and most of it was dual sport riding and then some free riding too, but it's just like how I like kind of keep the love for this thing, right? And being able to do passion projects is really cool. So with that being said, Ducati's on board to like help me do storytelling and create passion projects. So really excited to be able to kind of put my brain to work and go, think of an idea of a video project and present it to them. And you'll probably see some TB presented by Ducati videos sooner than later. So stoked.
That's good to hear, dude.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take one more commercial break. We'll be back with more. Welcome back here with TB. Lastly, on the Ducati thing, how cool is it to know that like a brand this big and this new into this genre is interested almost immediately in what you do too,
Man, it's an honor because I grew up racing and I kind of got hurt so much that in between racing, I would always go free ride with Twitch and all the boys and that, at a point was like hard to like pay my bills doing that, right? And then now that I've fallen into that niche and I've kind of helped create that and bring free riding back from what I grew up on, is really cool first and foremost, but to be able to create passion projects with Red Bull and all that, and then have companies like Ducati that's this big in the two-wheel culture see that and want to like be a part of like me as a brand for myself is pretty insane. And just again, 8-year-old me when I was going to MotoGP at Laguna Seca with Jake Zemke, like I would have never ever visualize that this would be a thing, but here we are, and here they are in this space, and just being able to like rep them and put them on my back, I think is really cool.
Yeah, so rad. All right, rewinding a little bit. All this hype's happening because we're getting Elsinore back in Southern California at the time, and I'm all stoked. We're not too far from it, so I was cruising by a couple of times a week just to check the progress, and all of a sudden I see like just mounds of dirt and you jumping one day, and I'm like, what is going on over there? Fast forward, Island Hopper, probably one of the coolest things that you've done. I'm a big fan of it, awesome. Where did the idea come from? And then like take us through, okay, let's build kind of a set at Elsinore before we do it.
Island Hopper was just absolute dream come true first and foremost. So I guess flashing back to like what I was saying earlier about Red Bull doing these ideation sessions with a bunch of athletes. I was at F1 Miami 2 years ago, and they did an ideation session, basically a workshop over 2 days to teach us how to think of an idea, pitch the idea, and then sell the idea. We're on lunch, and we're, from the idea, the first day of the ideation session, we're on lunch and we're in the pool kind of like, getting lunch and whatever. And Parks Bonifay, a legendary wakeboarder, we're kind of talking, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm about to do this project at this property in Florida. And he basically barefoot water skied from the bottom of the Red Bull helicopter. So anyways, this was 2 weeks before he filmed that, and he showed me the location on Apple Maps, and he's like, there's these islands that connect through this body of water. You think you could jump them. So this is literally where this whole thing started. Over an adult beverage in the pool, course, right? Yeah. Of course, Red Bull vodka. Yep. So anyways, he showed me this, and my scale, when I look on Apple Maps, if I can zoom all the way in, I can't zoom in anymore, and I could see some transition on one side and the other on the screen.
You have a ratio down?
I have a ratio that I know that if I can see two features on each side, that's around 100 feet, give or take. Okay. So when I zoomed all the way in on the first from land to the island 1, I could see an inlet on each side from island to land. And I was like, oh, like, maybe I can do this. And I started, made my way down the 6 islands, and each one got a little bit progressively bigger. And I was like, well, this seems like a cool idea until I see it with my own 2 eyes. I have no idea, but like, this is a perfect opportunity, like whether this is doable or not once I go see it, like this is a perfect opportunity for me to like use this exercise as, being able to try to build this idea and then pitch the idea, get up in front of all my peers at Red Bull and all, Red Bull brass sitting there and basically sell my idea. The whole thing is to take an idea and put it in a sentence to sell it. Like less is more, straight to the point. And dude, I got up in front of everybody and I talked about this whole idea, right? Well, anyways, this was in May of 2 years ago. So pitched it in May, got greenlit in July.
Damn.
And once it got greenlit, I was like, holy shit, like I still haven't even seen this with my own 2 eyes. So with that being said, Jason Baker's my guy. Yep. And I called him. He's in Florida. He's not too far. This was in North Tampa. It was in this place called Hudson. Funny thing about Hudson, that's where RJ Hampshire was born and raised and grew up. So anyways, so Jason went and saw it, and he was like, he basically was like, okay, this is going to be a logistical nightmare, but you can jump from basically start on land, end on land, jump across the islands. It's going to be very intricate process of planning to get to that point. So anyways, he told me that, got greenlit in July. I wasn't able to go back until October because I had a kind of busy schedule. Yeah. I went in October to see the islands for the first time with my own 2 eyes. That was after the back-to-back hurricanes that hit. So with that being said, the water level had risen about 3 feet, which exposed less of the islands. Yeah. But even when me going and seeing it when the water level was up, it was still doable. It made my gaps a lot bigger and a lot gnarlier, and the landing zones a lot smaller, but it was still doable. Fast forward from October, we came back in April. The water level had basically receded 3 feet, which exposed more of the islands, which made everything like a lot more obtainable, right? So went back in April. We built some docks that floated on the water. We had to basically secure the blocks, secure the docks down with bin blocks that is basically giant concrete squares. Suck the floating docks down so they did move, but they were like not gonna move too much. And I got to test the floating dock for the first time. To basically at this point in April, we filmed the project in November. Like in April, it was still just like, what islands are we gonna be able to jump to? How are we gonna do this? So we did the floating dock thing, jumped on and off the docks. We had an actual inflatable dock, and then we built wood ones. We ended up knowing that the wood ones were the ones that we want to use. So there was a little bit more sturdy and stable. At that point, it was like, okay, like now I can put this puzzle together in my head of like the islands that I actually can set up a ramp to, and then islands that I'm gonna have to kind of piece together. Because mind you, and this is an intricate process, so I'm explaining it like, you know, the best I can. But the islands aren't just straight. Everything kind of turns. One of the island, like the widest island was, I think, 21 feet wide.
Wow.
So think about having an 18-foot tall landing.
Yeah.
Like you can't physically get dirt out to these islands. So I had to figure out like, okay, which are the jumps, which are the islands that I can jump and land on, and then which are the ones that I need to basically put the floating dock and connect to the next one. Ended up putting this puzzle piece together in our head, and with that point with the crew and Jason Baker, we had a survey crew with Site Tech that came out and surveyed all the islands. When I said that the widest one was 21 feet, the thinnest one was 8 feet.
Dang.
So we had, you know, some of these islands were a foot above the water, some were 4 feet. They were all different elevations. So Site Tech came out and laid about 10,000 survey points over the islands of the water to basically get a perfect survey of everything. Yeah. From there, that was still a math equation in our head and a puzzle piece. Jason's so good at math, and he's so good at construction and these things that you know, the opportunity came up, and him and Brian Wallace obtained Elsinore, which is right here. And we were trying to figure out, like, am I going to go to Florida and we're going to build this in Florida to, like... So anyways, he got Elsinore, and to that point of the survey crew surveying all the islands, we needed to build the islands exactly how they are sitting above the water out of dirt to then even figure out the puzzle piece in our head to figure out like how we're going to angle the ramps and the landings, because like I said before, you can't, the logistics of hauling that much dirt out to those islands is just a time consuming process, let alone an island being 21 feet wide with an 18-foot tall landing. If you have a landing in dirt at 18 feet, it's going to basically be at least almost 30 feet wide at the bottom, because you can't cut dirt vertically. No. So this, like I said, this math equation, this whole thing, we then had the survey crew come out, stake the points at Elsinore, and we built the islands in about 2 days just out of dirt, exactly how the islands laid above the water. And then we went to work. I'm like, okay, how are we going to like make this all work, you know? And then we brought the ramps in, hauled dirt, and built the landings. And then from there, we had to do that for the survey crew to come back and survey what we built, heights, angles, widths of the landings, so that they could replicate it in scaffolding to put on the landings. So with that being said, that was why we built it at Elsinore. But the coolest thing about building it at Elsinore was then after the scaff crew came in and the branding crew and re-surveyed it, I could then ride it for 2 weeks. Yeah. And I had basically 2 weeks of every day. I would go, show up first thing in the morning, and I'd put about at least 15 runs in a day, and I would replicate what it would be like on the film set, of knowing that, like, okay, it's a half-mile body of water. It's probably going to take me about 40 seconds to start on land, end on land, and then I got to ride around the lake. So with that being said, and then resetting cameras and all this stuff, it would take me a while. So I rehearsed that in my head. I showed up every day, and I would literally like do my stretches, and I'd go straight jump full pull through the one time just to warm myself up, just because I knew that, like, if I'm there and I jump to an island, I can't just stop, turn around, and ride back to one. I had to get, like, ride onto a boat, and, like, it was a whole thing. So anyways, I would go, I'd do my straight jump, I'd come in, I'd set my alarm for 8 minutes. And I'd wait 8 minutes, and then I'd go back, and then I'd do the same thing. And I'd just literally rehearse that every day for 2 weeks. And then, you know, getting there, I was so locked into my muscle memory that once I got there and saw everything over water, like, I didn't see water. I saw my takeoffs and my landings, and I was just so mentally locked into that. But, you know, when this whole thing was 18-month process, start to finish, the meat and potatoes of actually doing the pre-build and the riding to execution of the project was about 4 weeks. But a lot of logistics for, you know, the 17 months of, like, figuring out the math equation, and Jason had to figure out barges to get a tractor onto the barge to then see, like, we didn't even know this is this whole body of water was a freshwater body of water, like right on the Gulf.
Yeah.
Above Tampa. So it originally was a lime rock pit. So they excavated lime rock out of there, sold the lime rock for road base. So this whole thing was basically, we didn't know the islands once we got a tractor on them if there was rock underneath it, or like we had no idea, right? That once we got there, and Jason and his crew absolutely knocked it out of the park. But leading up to that, in those 17 months, it was once a week on conference calls and trying to just piece this whole puzzle together in this math equation. And I'm on a conference call and they're like, yeah, you know, the feasibility side of this, like, you have an idea and you pitch it to Red Bull and they're like, okay, yeah, this gets green lit, but like they don't, they probably don't know the ins and outs like we do from the thing of like, it's a dirt bike over water. Logistically, like I said, barges to get the tractor out there, the tractors, like how many moving parts does this need? So we were going over feasibility and the price tag kept getting bigger and bigger on what it was gonna take to do this thing. They then said that they were gonna have to find a partner. And on one of the calls, they told me they had a potential partner and they wouldn't tell me. And I'm like, fuck, like you guys are leaving me on the hook. Like, I just want to know, but like, and they said it's gonna, like, it potentially could be big. And yeah, a few weeks later, they told me, they're like, yeah, this partner, like, it's kind of officially like it's happening. And they told me it was Apple. And like the fact that like, you know, being able to partner with a company that changed how humans view the world was absolutely mind-blowing. But then, you know, this whole project being filmed on the brand new iPhone, this is right when the iPhone 17 came out, was unbelievable, man. And to be able to see like the Island Hopper post pinned on Apple's Instagram page and like how many now millions and millions of views, I think, you know, they're up to 500 million between all the platforms that it's been seen. And just to be able to take, like, for me, to be able to be a free rider, but to put moto and a picture of a motorcycle pinned on Apple's page, like at the forefront of like this and this company is like, that's just the dream, right? That's what we want. We strive to like put moto in front of the masses. And the fact that I had that opportunity with Red Bull, it was an absolute dream come true, and it was definitely my biggest project to date, probably the one that I'm the most proud of. And I think, you know, going into that, the preparation side too, like I went to Matto's house and we worked with an underwater breath holding specialist that helps all the big wave surfers, and I was able to like prepare for the worst case scenario in my gear and my helmet in the water in his pool, and I held my breath for 3 minutes underwater. So, so knowing that I did that like if that happened of the worst case scenario of something happening and I crash and go into the water, I know how to remain calm and know that I will be safe. So I literally left no stone unturned with that process, and I prepared for the worst case scenario, and that ultimately helped me get there and be so locked into not seeing water and knowing that that I can execute this the best I can. And you know, I think on site over the day and a half that we filmed, I did 18 full pulls from start to finish. And not one time did I have to, I actually, of the 18 full pulls, I had one mistake. We had a 15-mile-an-hour headwind, and I kind of came up a little short on one of the ramps. And I got offline a little bit, and I decided to stop, got loaded onto a boat and taken back. Out of the 18, I only made one mistake and never had to touch the water, which was cool. I got to wrap the project, and I ran up to one of the landings and tried to do a gainer in my boots off into the water, and turns out the boots are heavy coming around the head. So I under-rotated a little bit and belly flopped pretty hard, but that was the only time I touched the water the whole time.
Dude, so rad. All right, we're out of time, but I got a couple more quick questions. Yeah. How was it jumping onto a barge? Because the first cut, you could see how much the thing moved. Yeah. Probably a little scary, or no?
To be honest, it wasn't too bad. Like, The crazy thing is one of the barges had a hole in it and took on water, and we got there one of the days and the barge was like damn near about to sink. So that was a process figuring that out. The cool thing is we had bin blocks, and these concrete blocks are heavy as hell, and we had them ratcheted down really, really, really well. The cool thing about the docks and the barge, like, yeah, it moved a little bit, but it was like, I mean, I've jumped to an airbag quite a bit.
Yeah.
That like, that's a weird feeling because it's like landing in a bounce house. This was like, I don't know, it was like the in-between of it. It wasn't as hard on especially my body of landing. Like, but it didn't, I don't know, it was weird. When I watch it back and I see, especially the floating docks, when I would land on the floating docks, it would kind of move down on one side, but then when I did that and landed on we called it the whale tail, so it was like a round landing and then a lip off. When I would land on the one side and then dip in the water, it would like make the lip out kind of poppier.
Yeah.
So it like the inertia of it like almost helped in a sense.
Okay.
And then, you know, you take that to the scaff landings and compared to Elsinore dirt, and the scaff is like, you know, wood with a little bit of give when you land. So yeah, I guess I kind of got on a tangent there, but the barge, like, it honestly was like a bit of a weird feeling at first, but once I did it the first time, it was like,
Nothing.
we're on.
All right, lastly, I've been wanting to talk to you about this or ask you this before. Obviously, I'm sure you watch racing and stuff. Your creative mind's something unique, but that aside, because you can't be in anyone's mind, is there anyone you see like racing supercross or motocross that you're like, that kid's style, he could do something similar to what your path was?
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah? Okay.
And it honestly would probably be the absolute perfect time for me to say this. Ken Roczen, dude.
Yeah.
Because I got him at Moto Sandbox one time.
That just came up on my Instagram yesterday.
When he was testing, balls deep in testing all kinds of stuff, because he was like, looking for a setting. And he saw the jump that Jason built me, and he came out and he was like, oh, like, what gear are you hitting that in? He's like, oh, let me follow you off of it. And I rode off it, jumped it, and I turned around in the air, and he's behind me in the air and jumped a 160-foot double. And, you know, I guess to try to make this quick, I go back to the barn. Larry Brooks is in there, and Larry's like kind of pissed off at me, like, why'd you make him do that? And I'm like, dude, he's a grown-ass man. I didn't make him do that. I just hit it, and I turned around, and he hit it behind me. And anyways, he was kind of bummed. And then the next day, I go back, and Larry's there, and Larry's like, hey, I want to apologize. Like, I haven't seen Ken that happy and that stoked in a long time. And fast forward that weekend, he went and won Indy Supercross, his first win on the Suzuki in a while. And there's something to be said about having fun and doing that. But Ken's style, like, he was just at a Fox shoot, and I spent some time with him at Kelly Slater's wave pool for Red Bull, and he was at a Fox shoot and sending me photos or videos of him doing turn-ups on the triple at Ironman, and I'm like, dude, like, he's got it, right? Like, and he's one of those guys that, like, he has that style and that creativity, and the people love him. So yeah, I mean, beyond that, like, there's some guys that probably could. They just need to, like, get out of the box of the racing and just, like Ken did, just come do it. And I'm sure a lot of them could and would be cool, but I know, like, they're in a box, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But,
I wish times were different and we had more kids riding hills like we saw.
I will say, I was at Elsinore one day and was talking with Hunter and Jet, and it was really cool that last year, the Honda shoot, Lars wanted them to go to Wyvern.
Oh, that's true.
And they got to hit a lot of the free ride jumps down in the free ride freestyle park right by the Supercross track. And they said that was one of the most fun days they've had in a long time. So that was cool, you know, to see Lars be able to do that, because he's like, you know, team manager, and that's not, like you said, it's not often that those guys don't even have bikes to be able to go do that, and let alone if it rains and they want to go, say, to Beaumont or something, it's a hard no, because it's a potential risk, right? So I think, I don't know if racers, you guys are listening out there, it's something to be said about just having fun, and I guarantee it'll relight your love for the thing and take you out of the monotonous grind.
Yep, for sure. Well, dude, thank you for making time
Absolutely.
for me. Congrats on everything.
Thank you. I have some pretty cool things in the works coming up, and yeah, trying to make these dreams a reality, and can't wait for you guys to see it. You may or may not see something big happening at Elsinore for me preparing. So that's all I'm gonna say.
All right, dude. Thank you, guys. Be sure to check out Red Bull TV, everything he's a part of, and we'll see you guys next week.
See you guys. Thanks.